Good afternoon all. We'll give it 30 seconds so we can wait for everyone to turn up and get comfortable and get ready for some interesting stuff from Peter. Hope everyone is doing well. Get some background music. Peter, got any country background music?
I can get my guitar out, Rob.
Ah, yeah, perfect, mate. Strum it up. No. I know Carvey plays the main guitar, don't you, mate?
Drums, mate.
Drums. Ah, nice. I don't play anything. I just play video games. All right, I think everyone should be logged in by now. Kia ora and welcome to another Future Skills Academy webinar. My name is Rob McClay and I'm going to be your host today. And today we're going to be talking about our navigating building consent processes with your local authority. During this webinar, Future Skills Building Lecturer Peter Sparrow will take you through the consent process and answer your questions. So there'll be options there in the Q&A just to pop in your question and we'll answer them as we go. You'll also have the chance to hear about the building consent control and surveying programs we have on offer here at Future Skills Academy. Our New Zealand Certificate in Building Regulatory Environment, or BRE, in Employment Level 4 teaches learners about New Zealand legislation and regulations, as well as compliance processes and councils around the country. So very, very handy. Peter has extensive industry experience. He started off as a carpenter in the New Zealand Army and has worked in local and central government. Peter was the General Manager of Consenting and Compliance at Christchurch City Council, and then a Director for the Ministry of Business Innovation and Employment. So pretty hefty background you got there, Peter. Nice for you to come on board. And we've also got Kavi Sudal, who'll be on hand. He's a relationship manager who'll be on hand during the webinar to answer any questions you might have about the enrollment process. He has 13 years of experience in sales and marketing in the UK, South Africa, and New Zealand. So nice to meet you, Kavi. Thanks for coming on in. So please feel free to type in any questions you may have for Kavi and Peter, and we'll get to those near the end of the presentation. So what is Future Skills Academy? Well, we've been operating since 2001. We're a leading Category 1 training provider with campuses in Monaco, Royal Oak, and North Shore. We also have an international campus in partnership with Otago Polytechnic, Te Pukenga, and Auckland CBD. Our programs offerings include health, IT, construction, and early childhood. So welcome, Peter. Thanks for joining myself and viewers today. I'm looking forward to hearing all about the BRE and what it entails. Over to you.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Well, I was going to say good afternoon. It is actually good afternoon. It is good afternoon. 12:03. Hey, so welcome to this wee presentation about the building regulatory environment. It's a course that we've been running for about 3 years now, and we've opened it up to people from the industry because it's really handy for you guys from industry to be able to kind of talk the same language as BCAs and councils. I know they're very, very, very regulatory orientated. I have worked for them before, but I've also, like Rob said, I've worked in industry too. So let's get into a wee bit of the presentation. Talked about this. Peter Sparrow, that's me. So what is a building consent? It's a really important approval. So building consent, it's a written approval from your local council to carry out specific building work on a specific site. It needs to comply with specific regulations. So for those of you that are in the industry, you know, it's got to comply with the New Zealand Building Code. It's also got to comply with other regulations. So building consent applications need to comply with the forms regulations. And many councils around the country have application processes that are online. In fact, the majority of applications are now online. But the purpose of a building consent is to ensure that work is durable, it'll last, it doesn't endanger the people that are going to use the building, whether it's residential, homes, or commercial, the places of work where you guys work every day. We've got a wee graphic here. And some of you, I'm pretty sure, would probably have seen this before. It's something we developed from the Department of Building and Housing back in around 2008, 2007, but it's still relevant today. It's still the same process. The building consent process is the same process that we've had since 1991 under the 91 Building Act. So the building regulatory environment kind of covers most of these steps, from owners having the idea all the way through to step 14, ensuring ongoing compliance. But the BREE does focus particularly on steps 8 through to 14. So the building consent process, applying for a building consent. So like I said, an application for a building consent is usually done online through most of the building consent authorities around the country. Building consent authorities are your local councils. We do have one private building consent authority, that is Kāinga Ora Homes, or what they call Consentium. So you make applications. The applications need to be in the correct format. They need to follow Form 2, which is in the forms regulations. So BCAs look at that. They look to make sure that it's been signed. They look to make sure that the appropriate documentation has been submitted with it. One of the key things that we talk about in BREE is we talk about what makes a complete application. What kind of documentation do we actually need? That is everything from the appropriate plans, so everything from a site plan through to details, and also the appropriate specification and supporting documentation. Are there engineering designs? Yep. Are there producer statements supporting it? So that application needs to be complete. We also talk about how councils receive applications and process. So it's a really good understanding for those of you that are in the design or construction industry, not necessarily council itself, to understand what a council actually does, because they're actually legislated to do this stuff. Yep, they don't just rubber stamp, and it's trying to get that information through to industry so that you can understand each other's roles. So once the council has the application, they will process the consent. Processing is the technical and regulatory decision about whether an application for a building consent complies with the building code. I will point out to you guys, and I know a lot of you that may be from the design fraternity will probably have a question for me if I say this. It's fine. BCAs or councils for an application for a building consent can only hold up a building consent or request further information, an RFI, for building code compliance, not for anything else. Okay. Once it's processed, they've received any further information that may have been requested, they go through into the granting and issuing phase. Now, the granting is the regulatory decision that the building consent application complies with the building code. The issuing phase is the money. So councils are legally obliged to charge for it. And I know there are a range of different fees, but they're legally allowed under the Building Act and Local Government Act to charge for it. So the issuing is the charging, receiving the money, and you'll get the physical Form 5, which is the issued building consent. The building regulatory environment will talk about the issuing and granting process. It will talk about the importance of the Form 5, the building consent, the document, and it will talk about the specific parts of the Form 5. So conditions on the building consent, of which there are only 5 conditions that can legally be on it. Councils also put on a whole lot of advice notes. So please provide specification or producer statements for the installation of waterproof membranes for showers. So they'll put stuff like that in there. It's important that as the people building or constructing the building, that they're aware of what those conditions and inspection requirements are on that Form 5. Because if it's missed, it gets really difficult down these further steps on this page. So once it's issued and granted, what we get into now is the inspection process. And the inspection process, I mean, there's dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, to tell you the truth, of different types of inspections. And it all gets associated with how the documentation, how the building is actually being constructed. There's no point having a foundation inspection in relation to a concrete raft foundation if the building is going to be timber piles. So the council is very specific on what inspections they require. Now, the inspections are there for an intended purpose, and it's for them to be what we call satisfied on reasonable grounds, that the building work complies with the plans and specifications that were issued a building consent. So the reason why they do inspections is to ensure that the building work complies with the building consent. So the building regulatory environment actually sits here and talks about the different types of inspections for certain projects. So it goes through, talks about how inspection would be undertaken, and that's really handy for people like builders on site to understand. You know, it's not just we go in and we tick a box. Yep, we actually go and we physically look at the building work. I've got some great videos that if you come on the course, great videos of some really shocking building work. And
well, this is what I came in for. I wanted to hear some crazy stories, Peter. So hopefully we get to one of them soon. I do have a question. I do have a question, sure. Peter. I'm interested to know, just purely interested, what does it cost to get a building consent? Because I'm not a builder or a designer or whatever it is, but I know I've heard crazy figures. Give me some, throw something at me.
That's a really difficult question to answer, Rob.
How long is a piece of string, right?
Where we have 87 councils in New Zealand,
yeah,
and each council is able to set their fees through local government processes. So it's actually, the fees are set through local government, in which all the councillors get together and agree about the fees. Okay, so you can have fees in Auckland that are twice the price of fees that are down in Horowhenua, and from experience. I'm just building a house at the moment, and my fees for Horowhenua District Council were just over $5,000 for a 230 square metre house. That will be different depending on where people are located, because they can set their fees differently.
Is it because it costs more in Auckland? More expensive in Auckland?
Everything costs more in Auckland.
So
yeah, but it's a really difficult question to answer in relation to cost. You had another part of that question though, Rob. So not just the cost, but there was something else there.
I probably did, but my other question I've got is, how long does the entire process take from number 8 to number 14?
Well, I mean, that again is how long is a piece of string, because it depends on the construction.
Yeah.
The actual processing of a building consent and issuing of a consent, theoretically, and this is what we talk about a lot in the Building Regulatory Environment course. Yeah. The law says that a BCA has 20 days to process a building consent application. Now, that gets stretched a little bit with application timeframes, and we'll talk about things like their accreditation requirements that have requirements for applications and accepting, and a maximum timeframe of 2 days there. But generally, the law says 20 days. Unfortunately, and I referenced it, we have this process called a request for further information. So if there is missing information during the application process, councils can send out an RFI, and that 20-day time frame is suspended. Now, I'll be the first one to put my hand up and say there's a lot of councils out there that sometimes game the system because they've been so busy. And we can talk, particularly for those of you that may be designers or making applications on behalf of your clients, we can talk about ways to smooth that process out. What is the correct information to be provided so we don't get an RFI?
I would think it'd be very handy to know that knowledge. So Yeah,
I
interesting.
mean,
Yep.
the old saying is time is money, right? So
Yep.
it's the longer you're delaying your building process, the longer it's costing you as a builder, as a developer, as a building compliance manager. So yeah, I think that's what Peter's getting to. So the course basically prepares you to reduce those RFIs. Is that correct?
Yeah, that'd be
And-
great. I mean, and if the course can reduce those RFIs between councils, designers, builders, group builders, it's great for industry. And part of the issue sometimes is this communication and talking the same language. So this course helps bridge that gap a little bit. There's actually 3 courses in BREE. So regulatory environment, PCA environment, and then communication and other bits and pieces. And the communication one's really important. So carrying on. So we're undertaking, the BCA undertakes inspections for the purposes of issuing a co-compliance certificate. So then at the building regulatory environment also talks a lot about the requirements for the issue of co-compliance certificates. What type of documentation are we required to provide? When we should provide it, what type of documentation we're required to fill out. So there are forms required for the issue of a CCC, often given through the building consent process. We can make applications online for that as well in many cases. So then the issue of the CCC and the co-compliance certificate is a really important document. So what we talk about in relation to co-compliance certificates is the significance of it. The banking institutions and the insurance institutions in New Zealand rely in totality on that issue of a co-compliance certificate. So it's really important. If we don't have a co-compliance certificate issued and something was to occur, and we've got just look in the last 6 months about what's happened in the Hawke's Bay, or what's happened up in Auckland in relation to natural disasters, or even just an accident occurring at home through a building consent that was issued for, I don't know, a solar fuel heater. If there was an accidental fire, that person may not be insured. So the co-compliance certificate is a really important document. So that was talking mainly about housing. So usually, and I'm not going to get into the Wellington requirements around cable cars, but usually that's the end of the process for a dwelling. Yes, from a commercial perspective, you'll have snags, you'll have a 12-month requirement to come back and fix any issues if you're a builder or a designer or developer. But from a commercial perspective, we also talk about commercial construction. And there is an ongoing requirement for compliance in commercial construction because we have all of these things called specified systems. So specified systems are the likes of emergency lighting, sprinkler systems, early warning systems for fire or other dangers. And I like talking about that part. They're required to go through what we call a building warrant of fitness process. And that is for as long as the building is standing. So every year the owner is required to get what we call independently qualified persons, IQPs, to go in and check these specified systems out. So they come back, they provide the forms to the owner then provides the forms to the council to make sure that these systems, and they're all safety systems to ensure that people can actually use the building safely, to ensure that those systems are operable. So we talk a lot about that in BREE as well. Communication, again, I'll reiterate, a lot about communication, particularly in BREE 3.
Yeah, I would think that if you're lacking communication skills, it would make life difficult to get anything moving across. So I can definitely see the advantages of that. So Kavi, did you want to add on to what Peter's been talking about, or Peter, have you finished presentation? Do you have a bit more to discuss?
Well, I think you're talking about this part, Kavi.
Yes, it's just a segue into why we're talking about this. So yeah, firstly, I just see Ranielto just pop in the chat. So any other questions to Peter or ourselves, please pop it in the chat in the bottom. So this is what we're talking about today is basically the area of the building regulatory environment. Okay, so many of you inquiring about our programs have that little interest about learning more about building regulations, about the building consent process. And this is a little overview of what we cover into our programs. The reason you're here, the invite was sent to those that have inquired to Future Skills Academy and inquired about some of our programs or have, basically been introduced to Future Skills about some of what we do. What Peter's talking about is what we cover in the Level 4 certificate. So the Level 4 certificate, as Peter explained, has 3 parts to it. It's an industry-related program, so it's those working within the industry. And what that means is that the training is packaged into short, sharp bursts, because the assumption is that you're working within the industry. Now, we also get a lot of requests from people who want to work in the industry, and it is an interesting career path, but currently currently not in that space. So they're looking to take the step into it. There are ways into the industry by doing the program, but the requirement is that you're working physically in that environment. So in your case, you could see this as an internship. You could approach a company working with building regulations, or if you're working with a company that's applying for building consents, that's working with documentation and certification, you could do a sort of internship or approach them to do 20 weeks worth of work experience in their offices while doing the program and attending the course here. Okay? If that's a step that you want to take into it. At the end of this qualification, you're quite employable. You're employable to councils, to private builders. If you're currently working within private building companies, into architects' offices, into home renovators and so forth. Yep, you become a bit more, a little bit about, I think renovators get their consents done through the architect's office anyways. But yeah, depending on the industry that you're related, it will make you more efficient in your current role. So a better understanding helps the whole process of submitting their building consent. Within that classroom, you also may be sitting within council staff themselves. So within that cohort and within that classroom, we've trained probably a few hundred now, council admin staff that are on the receiving end of that consent application. So they also feedback into what they'd like to see in what's been submitted to them. So as Peter alluded to, it creates whole industry efficiency by hooking onto this program. You get different perspectives from people within different companies, slightly different industries, but still involved in the building consenting and regulatory processes. So yeah, this is a little bit just a snapshot about why would you like to do this program. Peter, if you go one slide down, please, mate. So this is a level 4 qualification. So as I said, 20 weeks. The fees currently for this program are 3,608. Certain students may be eligible for fees free. You need to talk to me about understanding whether you are eligible for that or not. So who can apply? 18 years and above, currently working in a building consent authority or in a construction company undertaking regulatory duties or related fields like architectural companies and so forth. So certified builders, master builders, those sort of areas as well. Campus is blended online, so you can hook onto this. You can plug in from anywhere in the country, basically. So you're not limited by a physical location. It's an online classroom. Peter teaches most of this, but you could be taught by any one of our well-versed lecturers in different parts of the course. The next time we're running this course on the 8th of August, so there's some time to ask a few more questions before we can get into that. Peter, I'll just direct your attention to the chat box while I'm talking. I think there's a little question there. Licenses that we get to apply if you ever finish the course. I think just to touch on that, it's an NZQA level 4 qualification that you get at the end of this program. An added advantage is that it does give you a great foundation to build onto the diploma in building surveying. Okay, so we are currently doing an application to actually credit you the first course of the diploma. So if you're looking at a career progression pathway into a technical role that deals with the role, for example, of a building control officer. So this is the place to start, basically. So you step into the industry it forms a foundation for you to step into the diploma and even in the future the bachelor's of building survey.
So I was just thinking, imagining Peter teaching online, and I'm imagining Peter at the back of his house building something, doing TikTok at the same time with his followers. Is that part of the teaching, Peter? You're on mute, by the way. You're on mute. There we go.
As long as there's no carpenters in the course looking at my work, no carpenters like other carpenters looking at their work. No, that's fine. We have talked about that, and when I actually start getting into proper construction, not digging out site platforms and stuff like that, yeah, it would be worthwhile doing a few videos.
I'd pay for that, just for that. Sorry, Garvey, jumped in there.
No worries. No worries. So yeah, this program is delivered in partnership with Boynes, the Building Officials Institute in New Zealand. And I think something that you missed out in Peter's bio is that he's actually a director at Boynes. So he's one of the board members at Boynes currently. So we are very embedded into industry. We're the only ones offering this in the country. In the past, there was a more generic qualification called GREG that was offered by other institutions. This program specifically was developed specifically in consultation with the building consent authorities around the country, and developed in that time to suit the wider market. Future Skills is very heavily invested and integrated with the Building Officials Institute of New Zealand, and we work with over 60 councils in the country. So yeah, and in talking to industry, this qualification does prepare you very well for a role with a council or similar companies, or does make you a lot more efficient in your current role if you're working in the industry. So very desirable qualification to many, and it's a sort of untapped market because there's not too many with this qualification.
Can I add something, please, Kavi?
Of course.
It's great. Kavi mentioned that we do have council staff that do this course, but we also have, the administration staff from architectural firms who make applications for building consents on behalf of their clients, staff from group house builders or building movers, that make applications for building consents and then see it all the way through the process, make the applications for CCCs. It's really handy for them because they actually get to talk to the council staff from other councils as well to see how that works. And they do have arguments and examples of where things haven't flown or haven't flowed well. And it's really good seeing that kind of self-learning and debate online actually with those different parts of the same industry.
I do have a question. If I was wanting to build an outside toilet, would I need to get a consent?
Yes. It's a sanitary fixture. You need to get a consent for it, unless it's a temporary toilet, for a construction or something like that.
It was a long drop.
Yeah, then you're gonna need to go to the regional council as well because they're usually responsible for it.
It's too hard. All right, sorry.
Okay, just this final slide, if we can wrap up. Peter, if you could just go. This is the timetable of how we deliver the program. And I'll just talk you through it. So this is the cohort coming up on the 8th of August. So it's 3 days of teaching up front. So 8th, 9th, and 10th will be your first 3 days of class delivered online. So you can join from work if you have a quiet space in an office or boardroom, or if you're joining with some other members of your company, it's good to buddy up, or you can do it from home. So it's 3 days up front, and there's tasks and there's an online platform called Moodle that supplements your learning. So that goes side by side with it. You'll have a lecturer. So Brent would be in this case, and then Carl, and then you'd find Peter's lovely face at BRE3 on the 17th, 18th of October. So yes, 3 days up front, you go away with some tasks and stuff that you need to do to prepare for your first assessment and complete BRE1. You meet again at BRE2 on the 12th and 13th of September, again, with some classes and activities that we direct you through. So you've got a lecturer there at the side and more tasks that you got to do. And then, BRE3 is the last part about communication. The start of that course, Peter will take you through that. And there's a tutorial on the 13th of November that he will take you through. So support along the way, but you've got an online learner management system that's available 24/7 from the time you enroll to work at your pace. There's also, some tasks that you need to compile in terms of working within the industry that's highlighted in the workplace training agreement that will be sent out to you. So all in all, as you can see, what's that? My maths isn't too good, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days of physical class that you need to avail yourself for. And the rest is self-paced at your own time. Okay, how do you join? Which is the $1 million question at the end of it. I will take over sharing screen, Peter, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yep, and yep, so you hook onto our website. So let's take away all my tasks that I've got there. Okay, so am I sharing it? I'm probably not. 3, 2, 1, here we go.
Something's coming up.
There we go. Cool. So our website, futureskills.co.nz. On our programs, you can find the building regulatory environment. So if you go building control and surveying, program that we're talking about is, building regulatory environment. The other programs is what it feeds into. You can read up a little more on that. If you'd like to find out more, okay, some reading here for you from FAQs.
There's definitely a good pathway from low level to high level. So if you're really serious about what you want to do and you're really passionate about it, there is a good pathway into quantity surveying. Is that what you're saying?
Into building surveying.
Building surveying, sorry.
Building surveying. Yep. Yes, definitely a very good pathway. And if you'd like to become a building surveyor, it's also a very lucrative career path. You can pop on to Seek and just search building survey, and you'll see how many jobs are available at any given time, because it is a skill shortage area. It's an area that people do need to be trained on. And jobs are plenty within this field of work. It's a relatively untapped market as a career path. Building control is the industry, and it is an area that has traditionally seen people, tradesmen and women, come from industry, laying off the tools and entering this sort of career path. We're now starting to train a lot younger. We're introducing cadetship programs, for example, that start to approach even school kids, looking at this as a career path, and we're really developing this industry. And who knows, the future could see a chartered industry within building control, which is something else that we're working on. And we've got the Bachelor of Building Surveying coming up next year, which is an industry first as well. If you'd like to find out more, little inquire button at the bottom, or you could book a call, or if your mind's made up, just go out and fill out an application form. And then, you'll get directly in touch with myself or Hash, who is my admissions advisor that'll be able to assist through the process. Talk to us. So we're here to listen to you. Now I've got a face to the name. Just see James Robertson, for example, on the call, who I've been emailing since last year. Let's put the personal touch to it, and let's engage further.
Perfect. Well, hey, thanks, Kavi. Thanks for that breakdown of the program. And Peter, also thank you. I'm interested to get that outdoor toilet sorted out pretty soon. What I'm trying to do is actually we're going to have a webinar on Peter and his crazy BRE stories in the council. So I'm really looking forward to joining that webinar. We'll send it out. So it'll probably be for Friday afternoon after a beer or something. So once again, if you're really keen to do this program, time is running out to enroll. I believe August 3rd, is that the date?
August 8th.
August 8th is the start date. So you want to get in at least start the process now, so you can get all the documents together and start cracking into it. So once again, Peter, thank you so much for coming aboard. Kavi, thank you so much, and we'll see everyone in hopefully the next webinar, or we'll see applications coming through online. Feel free just to email us if you've got any further questions. Cool, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
So thank you, Rob. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, bye-bye.